Alex, and through her hard work and leadership, has been the primary reason that the foundation has been so successful in raising funds. And as a result of that, the hospital then has had its success and helped make the health and well-being of our community much better than it would have been. So Alex has really had truly an important impact on the community and made it a better place to live.
Her mission and has always been the better health care for this community, and she has really done that. And by providing cutting-edge material, cutting-edge education for our nurses, which, Sarasota Memorial Hospital has magnet nursing status for the last, I don't know how many years, and that's very rare. And I think part of that is because we do give the education, give all the nurses everything, try to give them what they need. And we do cutting-edge equipment at the hospital, which makes us equivalent to any big city hospital. And so I think the best thing she's done for this community is, of course, is the health care that we have.
What's special about Alex is that she has a dedication to doing the right thing for every aspect of the community. A lot of people work in not-for-profit or in foundations, and they're oriented towards a specific goal, a specific purpose. What I love about Alex is that she's constantly reaching out to help others that have nothing to do with the organization she's involved with, because it's going to make where we are a better community.
Alexandra AlexQuarles was born October 8, 1952 in Fort Collins, Colorado. She was the third child of 4 children, an older half-sister, an older brother, and a younger half-sister. Her father, George Robertson Quarles III, was a colonel in the U.S. Army and married her mother, Helga Messner, in Germany during World War II.
When he returned back to the United States after the war, he was stationed in Texas, which is where my older brother was born. And then he had to retire, and we moved to Colorado so that he could go to the Aggie School in chemical engineering. And that's where I was born.
As a toddler, Alex and her brother would play Superman and imagine they were saving the world from evil.
We had a little shed out in the back of the house, and I would put a towel around me and pin it to my shoulders, and we would eat the little grapevine twirly little things and pretend that that was our superfood, and we would jump off and fly off the shed onto the ground.
When she was 3 years old, the family moved to Scottsdale, Arizona.
My mother decided that she really loved the desert, so we ended up going to Arizona, Scottsdale, which is where my father got a job with the city.
Her mother was an artist and would frequently use Alex as her model.
She did a lot of still life, a lot of ballerina work, commissioned, obviously, and I wasn't really terribly patient sitting there waiting for her to draw me, but it was nice because it was charcoal, it wasn't oil. I didn't have to spend a lot of time sitting in a chair.
She attended Pima Grade School in Scottsdale and was a good student. When she was in 5th grade, her parents divorced. She and her brother stayed with her father, and they moved to Southern California.
I lived outside of LA for a short time, and then my father contacted his XO in New Hampshire, and we moved to New Hampshire, my brother and my father and I.
In Kingston, New Hampshire, Alex's father died. She was 12 years old, and her brother George was 15. They went to live with her older half-sister, who lived in a town nearby.
She was married and had a daughter and was pregnant with a second child. We went to Grosse Pointe to live with her for a short while. We didn't have a relationship. We didn't know each other well. Her relationship with her husband wasn't going well. She was pregnant, and to take on 2 more children made it extremely difficult for her. So we went back to New Hampshire, where my father's XO and his wife, who was an Army nurse, and lived with them because they also had a daughter and a son the same age as my brother and myself.
It was a difficult time for Alex.
They didn't have psychologists when actions like this took place in school, so you just had to tough it out. And I just turned to school and sports and friends.
Her foster family made every effort to help Alex with her loss and to live a normal life.
They were very good to me. We did a lot of wonderful things. We did travel, we skied, we skated, we had a summer camp on a lake up in New Hampshire. I had some great friends, but it was, I never really had an opportunity to get over the two major losses in my life at that time.
Still, Alex was unhappy in her new home. She felt alone and out of place.
It was sort of like I was the stepchild, the one that wasn't going to make it, I think, in their minds. And they were a lot tougher in how they were handling taking on two more children.
When she was 15 years old, she moved in with a friend and her family. It would change her direction in life.
I was happier, ended up on the dean's list, and did very well.
When she was 16, she went to Mexico to visit her mother in an attempt to reconnect.
Spent some time with her and came back to the United States and realized that we really didn't have the relationship that we'd hoped we would have together. She was an artist, and a very good artist, and had a very unique life living where she was, and it was very different from me, especially living in New England at that time. So, but I did go back and see her many times before she finally passed away. And we made up for a lot of lost time, but we were never very close.
At Sanborn Regional High School, Alex decided to reinvent herself. She felt her name, Alex, was unusual for a girl, so she tried something else.
When you have a mother's and a sister's whose name is Helga, and your name is Alexandra, and everybody around you in school is a Susie or a Judy or a Jennifer or something else, you become the odd man out very quickly. And because my father was in the military and because of divorce and moving around a great deal, when I got to high school and after my father died, I decided I needed to reinvent myself. And so Pam fit in with everybody else, and I was just like every other teenager. I wanted to fit in.
In high school, she began to embrace her studies and student life.
English, I felt, was very important to be able to communicate appropriately to people. I thought it was just important to be able to express myself.
She got involved in athletics, where she soon found she had a talent.
Well, softball was my favorite sport. I loved softball. I played 3 positions. I was either the pitcher, the catcher, or the first baseman. I understood the game very well, and I could anticipate where a ball was going to go and how it was going to be thrown, and I was fast enough to be able to react.
Not only did she play sports, but she was the spirit leader and on the cheerleading squad.
Being voted a varsity cheerleader in my sophomore years actually didn't make a lot of seniors very happy. But because I was athletic and I could do choreography and I liked dancing, then it made it a little easier to do those types of things. And I thought it was really important to make sure that the school was well recognized, well represented, and the people that I was surrounded by also had the same mentality.
Her math teacher, Alan Walker, recognized Alex had emotional scars from the loss of her father and the estrangement of her mother. He was an influential presence in her life.
I used to babysit for him and his wife, and she was involved in the church, local church. And this was a small town. We lived in a house that was built in 1686, which is now a restaurant. But He somehow knew that there was a spirit or something inside of me that could get me through the tough times. If I needed somebody to talk to, he was patient and he was kind and he listened well. He understood the pain I was dealing with, and he cared for me in a way that I wasn't being cared for otherwise. In a kind manner, in a fatherly, older brother type of manner.
Alex was a member of the homecoming court and was well liked throughout high school. She graduated from high school in 1970 and entered business school in Boston.
It was a very small school. There were a total 60 graduates, and most of them were either married by the time I got out of school or getting married, because that was the way it was back then in that community, small community. But that wasn't for me. So I went to Katie Gibbs thinking, well, maybe I'll get into business, maybe I will get into stewardess, whatever. I did some modeling for them.
Alex pursued the options for modeling while in Boston, but found it was not the lifestyle for her.
They wanted me to do too many things to myself. They wanted me to change my teeth. They wanted me to lose 10 more pounds, even though I was a rail at the time. And I said, no, that wasn't for me. I didn't want the stress. I didn't want to be something I wasn't, or felt that I wasn't going to be.
In 1971, Alex's brother had finished his enlistment in the Air Force and had returned from Vietnam. He was recuperating from his experience in Sarasota and encouraged Alex to join him in this tropical paradise.
I left Boston and it was rainy and cold and snowy, and I arrived in Florida in February, and it was, pristine weather. And I remembered how beautiful the weather was when I lived in Arizona. It was clear vistas. You weren't encumbered by trees and things of that nature. And I love the water. So, and the sun and the color and the light, all of that attracted me greatly. So 6 months later, I quit my job and moved down here.
Her love of the outdoors influenced her first job in Sarasota when she signed on as a crew member for the Flying Fish charter boat.
My job was serving beer and putting bait on hooks, and at that time, shooting sharks if you couldn't get them off the line. So, and then swabbing down the decks. So it was a great experience all around from that. I was out on the water and I loved that. I loved being around the people. There was always something new and challenging to deal with every time I was out on the boat. And so that was just a lot of fun for me.
She then took a number of jobs in accounting, from working for a shoe factory to an attorney.
I would pay attention and I listened and learned a lot about certain legal issues in particular. Some of the things that I did down here working for an attorney was I was setting up offshore corporations in the Cayman Islands, which was an interesting experience. But I knew that wasn't for me as well.
Having worked in the food service industry as a teen, Alex took a job on Longboat Key cooking in area restaurants while enrolling in community college to further her education.
I liked cooking, so that was fun. And I spent a lot of time, this was out on Longboat Key in the old haunts, when you had the Buccaneer Inn out there, and the Colony, of course, was there, and a lot of the old guard from that area and that era in particular. And so they sort of took me under their wing and taught me a lot of different things. At the same time, I was going to what was then brand new Manatee Community College for a couple of years while I was working at the same time.
In Sarasota, she embraced her name and left Pam, or Pammy, back north.
Coming here and becoming Alex and being unique and feeling more unique and growing from that experience, and having somebody say, well, you don't look like a guy, then I was okay with it. And now I'm very okay with it.
For a short time, she worked traveling the country with a financial seminar company.
It was great. I got a chance to do some more traveling, and I enjoyed it, but it wasn't where my heart was and what I wanted to do.
In 1981, looking for a new direction, Alex took a position with Mote Marine Lab in the PR department and membership department.
Worked for Bill Taft, who was the CEO before Kumar. In fact, Kumar and I are still very, very good friends, very close friends.
At Mote, she met a man who would change her life. His name was Stan Rice, and he was a dashing researcher and marine biologist. They fell in love and were married on May 29, 1982. While working at Mote, Alex was introduced to the concept of philanthropy and discovered how philanthropic programs could assist research.
And they decided to start a foundation separate to fund, offset some of the costs, because basic research money is very difficult to get, and that's what my husband was working on, basic research, benthic research, which is what's under your feet in the salt water, what's growing down there, how does that make a difference in the ecosystem, those types of things. Applied research was a little easier to get because companies wanted to know what was happening with stormwater runoff, so they were willing to pay more money for researchers to work on their projects. So when Stu Beal was hired to help start the foundation, and Bill Mote had hired him, and he hired me immediately to work with him, and he became my mentor and encouraged me to learn more about philanthropy, what it can do, what it does.
Their first daughter, Catherine Alexandra, was born on April 1st, 1984. Shortly after, Stan accepted a position at the University of Tampa. In Tampa, Alex went back to school at the university and worked full-time.
I worked at the University Tampa Prep for a long time because I was on the campus of the University of Tampa and went to school at the same time. And at that time I still had only one daughter, so I was doing 3 different things. Working, going to school to finish my degree in liberal arts, and raising a family.
On February 13, 1988, her second daughter Emily was born. Not long after, Alex and Stan divorced. Alex devoted herself to her work and raising her children.
We had so much fun because I got to be the kid that I never had a chance to be with them. So we would ride bikes, we would go feed ducks, we would go skiing, we would go ice skating, we would play kickball in the backyard, we would play in sandboxes, well, they didn't have video games and such at that time, but we were just all little kids together. Of course, me still being the mom and the one that had to be in control.
Alex determined she would focus her career in a direction that would help others.
I liked biology. I liked understanding what was going on with our bodies and with our minds. I enjoyed learning what that was all about, and the more time I spent around researchers and physicians and clinicians and learned what I did, it just became fascinating to me. And then I realized without good health, you have nothing. You can't do the things you want without maintaining a good, healthy lifestyle and good health. And I loved the scientific aspect of it. I loved the idea that there was always something new around the corner that was going to happen. And I loved being a part of making those things happen. And the way I could do that at that time was through philanthropy.
From the University of Tampa, she took a position with the University of South Florida Health Science Center.
Oversaw the colleges of medicine, nursing, and public health. There were other people that were there working with me as well.
She graduated from the University of Tampa in 1988 and soon was presented an opportunity with the newly established Moffitt Cancer Center.
I met a man, Dana Toddson, who became one of my favorite and best mentors. He was with Moffitt Cancer Center. So we actually became some of the first employees of the Cancer Center when it was built, and built the development office. And then after he left, I took over his position and started the foundation.
In 1994, she was looking for a change from the Tampa environment.
They were going to send my youngest daughter to Ybor City, which was 18 miles away from where I was working, for 1 year and I said that was unacceptable. The crime rate was rising precipitously, and I said we need to be someplace where it's safe and comfortable and where I wanted to be, which was always to be here.
Alex became involved with several philanthropic organizations and made many contacts in the industry. She learned Sarasota Memorial Healthcare Foundation was looking for a new executive director.
Ron Royal, who was the CEO at that time, was also a colleague because of our professional associations. One is called the Association of Healthcare Philanthropy, which I was heavily involved with on committees and so forth. And the other was the National Society of Fundraising Executives, which is now called Association of Fundraising Professionals. And we would get together, we had chapters, and I got to know him. And he was close to retirement and was ready to do some different things in his life. So I had not seen the ad, but I asked him what his plans were, and he said, well, I'm planning to leave. So apparently an ad was placed, but I wasn't aware of it. But I asked him if I could submit a resume anyway, and I did. And out of 83 applicants, I was the only woman, and I was the one that was hired.
At that time, Sarasota Memorial Healthcare Foundation was a much smaller organization.
There was only 3 of us. Life at that time was very different in Sarasota. We had things like, when I inherited his office, we had couches set up more like a living room style than an office style that I was used to. There was a full stocked bar for conversations, or after work conversations with donors or friends or board members and things of that nature. I changed all of that.
Alex came to town at a real turning point in our community in terms of healthcare developments in technology and the community growing, and it was a synergy that all came together, but she had the vision to take it to the next level, to take us to where a lot of communities would be just envious, so envious to be able to be. And she's always had she's understood very well the needs of the community in terms of health care, and she has championed for that.
The foundation was founded in 1976, and during the 38 years since then, we have raised over $75 million and been able to provide grants of over $50 million. That's been, a majority of that has all been to the hospital. And that goes back to the early days where we had brought the first MRI equipment to Sarasota, and more recently where we provided $5 million for the upgrade of the emergency room. We brought Da Vinci robots to the area, and that was, at the time, that was cutting-edge technology. And this was all Alex's doing. She convinced the donor to contribute over $2.5 million to put in an urgent care center down on the South Trail. So the foundation, through its grants to the hospital, has helped provide the hospital with that extra margin of excellence, which has allowed the hospital to become the premier institution that it is today.
She's very, very articulate. She's really smart. She speaks her mind, but she knows how to be a good leader. You have to lead by example, and she does that. She's very well prepared. She's really a team player, and she's put together a really good team.
She has raised $80 million in the past 20 years and has granted $70 million to not only the Sarasota Memorial Hospital, but other not-for-profits such as the Blood Bank, such as Senior Friendship Center, and many, many more here in the marketplace.
We are very unique, and we are probably only one of 2 or 3 left in the country, or even in the country at all, that is completely separate from the hospital. I'm not a hospital employee, or none of my staff are. And that was done on purpose, and it was done by Jack Floyd, who was then the executive director of the hospital, and Medicare and Medicaid was coming online. What was happening was the government wanted to absorb any of the philanthropy and use that and change the Medicare reimbursements through philanthropy by using those donor dollars. So our foundation was created totally autonomous from the hospital, and even though we're business partners, and we're very good business partners and we work very well together, we are a very separate organization because we also can make grants to other not-for-profit healthcare organizations in the county.
We really are the envy of a lot of communities, and I credit Alex with a tremendous amount of that because she saw the need for it, she could see around the corners, and she knew how to make it happen.
Alex has embraced her position and credits the Sarasota donors with making it all possible.
The intelligence of the people that are here, the quality of people that arrive here are just amazing. You know, you can go to Palm Beach and it's very clear who the wealthy and the well-known are. But Sarasota has quiet wealth and well-known individuals that when I listen to some of their stories, I am just absolutely stunned by some of the accomplishments that they have made in politics, in science and research, in everything. That I love listening to their stories. They teach me a lot. They become a secondary education for me.
We asked AlexQuarles her advice for those who follow.
I found a card recently that I sent to a friend of mine who recently had his 81st birthday. And it was a phrase by John Lennon from the Beatles. And it said, his teachers in school asked him one time, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And he said, "Happy." And the teacher said, "No, I don't think you understand the question." And his response is, "I don't think you understand life." And I think the bottom line is, be happy.